What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Passive Tree Podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking about life, Path of Exile 2, and everything in between. And today on episode 27, I'm joined by a fellow PoE 2 and 1 creator. You know him, you love him. It's Dreamcore. Welcome on, and how the heck are you doing, man?
I'm good, yep. I'm good. Excited to dive back into PoE2 next week.
Absolutely. Hell yeah, man. Yeah. I
Prepping up
want
more videos.
I wanted to just jump into an initial first impressions from you for the 0.4 patch. There kind of seems like there's a bit of a divisive sort of feel within the community right now. Some people are disappointed, some people are excited, some people are kind of both. Give me your sort of take on how you're sort of feeling right now about 0.4.
I would say I'm cautiously optimistic would be my take on it. Look, there's some things missing that I was really looking forward to. The Endgame changes was the biggest one, but also Tried of the Ancestors. That's something that I've been waiting for ever since that league disappeared from PoE 1. And I was really excited the moment they said it was going to be in PoE 2. So for it to, for them to release Act 4 and then for Trial of the Ancestors to be missing on that launch, and then the next patch is still missing, that's kind of unfortunate, but the stuff that we're getting in 0.4 does look like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just excited to try out the new stuff, try out the new skills for the Druid. And yeah, I mean the league mechanic looks pretty cool as well. Like Incursion's one of those leagues in PoE 1 where it's kind of like it's a fun league, and it's got a lot of really like good unique rewards that you can't get elsewhere, like the double corruption chamber and things like that. And that's going to be coming to PoE 2 now, so that's going to be a mechanic that's always going to be valuable. So it's like it's something that you can kind of specialize into and farm, and that should be quite good.
Yeah, I love the way you phrase it where you're saying cautiously optimistic. That's kind of how I feel, but I can't deny, and I've kind of been talking about this amongst my peers and stuff like that, where there is this sort of disappointment. It's kind of like a rug pull sort of feel. And it really is just based on the expectations that we had as the player base through their communication, right? And so we're missing those like crucial endgame reworks. That's something that for me as a player who likes to play for dozens, if not hundreds of hours per league. Like I'm spending the majority of my time in the end game. And so that is the stuff that I was really, really looking forward to. As exciting as the new league mechanic is, as exciting as the Druid is, it still sort of pains me a little bit to be like, damn, I'm still going to be spending hundreds of hours in the exact same end game. No search functionality in the Atlas, no more difficult content. Like it's a little bit crushing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's pretty much that is my take, almost entirely, like to the point. It's just for me that the end game is the most lacking part of the game right now, and it's like in 0.1 especially, because the game was like fresh. I just played through the campaign so many times on so many different characters, right? And then in 0.2, like I played a lot more of the end game, and then in 0.3 I also played a lot more of the end game, and it's just not. Like you get there on the one character, you play a lot, and you kind of get this feeling where when you want to reroll and make a new build, you reach the end game and just the life is sucked out of the game. You like lose all of your interest in like continuing that character, because like the fun is just removed. At least it is for me when I reach the end game, So that's definitely a pain point for this patch, is that not being there, right? Those end game changes that they wanted to make, but according to what Mark was saying, like there's a lot going on there, which is why it wasn't finished. So I think that if they can get it finished, and assuming they'll be able to get it for 0.5, which they've said, but then again they did say 0.4, right? So who knows? But yeah, I'm hopeful that it's going to be a really impactful change for the end game when it does come around.
I hope so too, and I know that they're going to cook something really special, and they're obviously aware of the issues that are at hand. I have this particular opinion right now, and I don't know if how you're going to feel about this, but I'd love to share this with you. Where I am of the opinion that I would have much rather not seen a league mechanic. I would have much rather just seen a substantial endgame rework and have just had like Abyss League just continue. I'm of the opinion that like as a game that's very much incomplete, it kind of seems a bit weird to have the priorities focused on creating all these new league mechanics and content on a game that's fundamentally incomplete and in a bad state in certain areas. And so it makes me question like, are the priorities like right now in the appropriate spot for GGG where, they're adding on to this game that's not complete, that's, very much so in a rough spot end game wise. How do you feel about this kind of priority list that they have going on right now?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said in my video when I just discussed the patch notes, that like the biggest loser for me this patch is the end game, and I just question their priorities. Like I don't know why they're putting so much focus on a league mechanic. I think I do know why they're doing that. The reason, so in my mind, the reason why they put so much emphasis on a league mechanic for this release is because it's a Christmas release, so it's their biggest financial opportunity of the year in terms of a release, and they're releasing to a market of Path of Exile 2 players and some Path of Exile 1 players. And I think that generally the player base is a bit more casual than it is for PoE 1. And so their take is probably that the end game is not as important for the majority of those players in terms of the longevity of it. And it's more so that experience of like playing Path of Exile 2, as like a new experience every time. So they have the new class there, they've got like all of the new league mechanics that's going to be in every area, right? So I think for them, the importance of having a league mechanic in this release is very important for like that particular audience that they're trying to market towards, right? And if they had just come out and gone with like a 0.2 thing where there's like barely a league mechanic, right? We had the wisps in 0.2 and that wasn't really a league mechanic at all. I think they're kind of worried that it's going to be a flop like that again. So they kind of want that league mechanic. Personally, for me, from a selfish point of view, I would rather they didn't have a league mechanic and they focus fully on the end game, because at the end of the day, like the league mechanic isn't going to make up for the lack of the end game for me, right? So that's my perspective, but I think that's why they did do a league mechanic and why they prioritized it over those end game changes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, like 100%. It's just like again, the priorities. I feel like with them kind of treating the game like a fully finished game, it's inevitably going to make the development of PoE 2 just so much longer as well. Like we won't see the game actually complete if it's staying at this pace until I don't even know what your thoughts are on like actual 1.0 release, but like I'm thinking like 2027 now, man. Like it
Yeah,
might be a long time, right?
feels like it will be 2027. I mean, even by then, I don't know, because the amount that they're releasing now. I know that they said that they don't want to have, like, they're not bothered about having all of the classes and ascendancies in the game, right? But they need all of the acts in the game, and they also want like the end game to be. I can't remember what the exact terminology was, but they want the game to be a banger or something like that, right? By the time they actually fully release the game and actually go free to play, because they're only going to get that opportunity once to put the game free to play, and then they get that massive influx, right? That's only going to happen once. So that they want it to stick. Yeah, probably 2027, but I mean, I guess we'll see what happens next year. I don't really see it releasing next year, not at the pace that it's going at.
For sure. And I at the end of the day, like I love the company, I love the game. And I know that like when the game is ready, it'll be ready and it's gonna be awesome. I think it's just kind of like a, you know, do they want to get it done sooner or do they want to just kind of drag it along to make sure that it's just in the perfect spot when they get there? And yeah, we're just gonna have to kind of wait and see how it all progresses. But I'm excited to be along on the journey with you and with everybody else, and just kind of experiencing this special game. It's funny that you brought up 0.2 though, because zero point 0.2, I think, was, as they mentioned, like one of the, if not the worst, like leagues they've ever had, like in GGG's history. But when it came to the end game, they actually added like quite a bit of stuff to the game. Like they added the corrupted zones. They kind of reworked how you got your Atlas points. They added the like the sanctified or the cleansed zones as well. They added rogue exiles. They added just like a bunch of different things to the end game, along with like wisps and stuff like that. And so that was like probably the league where we've seen the most end game changes um yet. Basically, like we saw like the tower changes in 0.3.1, but other than that, it's kind of been like the same old for basically the entire game so far, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I think that part of that and why that was kind of a flop in the end for 0.2 is, I think it's like it's not like one particular thing. It's more like a combination of stuff. it's like, yes, there wasn't a good lead mechanic, but you could also look at those end game changes and say that they weren't really drastic enough to change up the end game. In a way, like they were changes in the right direction, but they didn't actually kind of change the core problems with the end game. Like they didn't make the traversing the atlas that much more interesting, at least not from my perspective, right? Which is why I kind of felt like even after that patch, the end game still kind of feels the same, not exactly the same, but it feels very similar, right? It's not like it was completely reworked and changed. So I feel like that's probably why 0.2 was a big flop, is because even though there was a lot of changes, that they weren't really impactful enough to like completely change the whole feel of the end game, and that's what people want. I think that people are not convinced about this atlas yet. Like they haven't been convinced enough to the point where they believe in the infinite scrolling atlas. I can see the potential there. I think that if they can make it really interesting to actually explore the atlas, right, and fun to explore the atlas, then it's actually going to work, right? Right now, people are kind of, especially PoE1 players, are comparing it to the PoE1 atlas because they prefer the whole like agency of being able to run the same maps and the same, you know, the same layouts and the same strategies and stuff. But because they haven't really been able to fully show off the potential of that like infinite atlas yet, people just don't have any faith in it. So you know they need to show that to the players. They need to prove that they can do that.
Definitely. It also feels like with 0.2, because the campaign experience was just so much rockier for so many players, like despite there being like cool, unique maps and all of these different things that they added to the end game, like a lot of people probably even bounced before they even got to experience any of the end game stuff. I would imagine that like a significant portion of the player base like didn't even like get to experience all of the cool stuff because like it was like an amalgamation, like you said, of a bunch of things. Like the campaign experience was not good. And therefore translated to like massive falling off of player base before people could even enjoy or experience like the new things they added. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, man, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
I would love to rewind a little bit. I know we kind of jumped into 0.4 just because I'm so excited to talk to you about all this, and there's a lot to talk about with regards to 0.4. But I do want to get a little bit of Dreamcore lore for not only myself but for the viewers as well. Something I love to do. So I'd love to rewind and just ask you kind of some basic questions about your early gaming history. The first one being just when did you start gaming, man, and what were you playing on when you were playing as a kid?
I guess my earliest memory of gaming would have been on a Sega Mega Drive.
Nice.
Um, I know my brother and my sister used to play a lot. I used to watch them like when I was too young to even play, right? And I guess the first games were like Sonic the Hedgehog, Street Fighter, like those kind of games on the Sega Mega Drive. And yeah, I mean that was kind of my first experience of playing, and I remember like getting a Game Boy, right, with Pokemon. That was also like a big one, right? I mean, Pokemon was just incredible. Like when it first came out, Pokemon Red and Blue. I remember
Yes,
me
dude.
and my brother both got a Game Boy each, and we had we had Pokemon Red and Blue. Um, and then I think so that was like my first experience with gaming, but I didn't really play that much of the Sega Mega Drive because I was like very young at that time. We also had a PlayStation, but for me, I think the most like when I really got into gaming was when so my dad had a colleague that he worked with that would get like cracked games, right, like pirated games basically, and he would get just completely random games, right, the type of games that you would never go in and buy yourself. They're just like not not. So we'd have a bunch of random games, but one of the games that he got was Warcraft 2 on the PC, which was my first game playing on the PC. I
Nice.
remember I just loved that game, right? Absolutely loved it, Warcraft 2. And I think it was probably about a year before Warcraft 3 came out, because when Warcraft 3 came out, I knew about it already because of playing Warcraft 2. And that was like the game, right? Warcraft 3 was just insane to me, like absolutely insane. And I played that so much. And obviously part of that is the custom games that kind of came after that, the custom games that people built in the world edit. Things like Dota and Footman Frenzy and Hero Line Wars and all of that stuff. Um, yeah, I played that a lot right? That's definitely one of the most um, influential games in terms of like the games that I've played in the past is Warcraft 3. I probably played that the most, I would say. I went on to play Dota 2 for a, a long time, right? I had a beta key when there was only like 2,000 people playing Dota 2, and I played it for like 10 years or something. I don't play it anymore. But yeah, that was as a result of playing Warcraft 3, because obviously Warcraft 3 was where Dota started as a custom map, and I played it a lot there, and then I kind of found out about Dota 2 being a thing. But yeah, that was a impactful game on me. And one other game for me that was really impactful, and this is kind of like recent memory now for me because I've been playing it just the last few days, is Guild Wars, the original Guild Wars, because Guild Wars has just had like not a reboot, but it's had like an update for the first time in many years called Guild Wars Reforged. So I've been playing it again the last few days. But that game had a big impact on me as well. That's like the only MMO I've really ever played. In it wasn't really an MMO. It was kind of more of a co-op RPG, because even though you had like all of the people interacting in towns, right? Like you'd be able to see loads of people. When you actually went out into the areas to fight monsters, you would be in like a isolated group, right? And everybody would have like their own copy of those areas. So that game was really something. I think those two games had the biggest impact on me. Is Warcraft 3 and Guild Wars.
I love that, dude. We actually have such a similar gaming history. It's actually kind of crazy. Like my first system that I ever played was Sega Genesis, basically what they called the Sega Mega Drive in North America. I also had
Yeah.
Pokemon on my Game Boy. My brother had Blue, I had Red. We would trade, and like I remember like the link cable and like evolving our Pokemon and like
Yeah.
all that shit. It was like the game design from the Pokemon company back then was like on another level, man. Where like you had to actually interact with other people and play on two different games in order to complete the Pokédex and like everything like that. Like it
Yeah.
was just genius the way they pulled that off. And then yeah, like when I was a kid, I ended up getting into computer games too. I never played Warcraft 2 when I was younger, but Warcraft 3 was a huge thing for me, and the Frozen Throne as well. And I ended up playing Dota 1 as a custom game, and then I moved into Dota 2 as well when Dota 2 came out and played it for a very long time. MOBAs, though, you've been there, you understand the pain of MOBAs, and like it just wears and tears on you. It's a beautiful game, but it also is very toxic sometimes, very stressful. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny that you're playing Guild Wars Reforged though, because Guild Wars was one of those games that I actually picked up when I was younger as well, and it was like kind of one of the early MMOs for me. Like I played RuneScape when I was a kid quite a bit, and then I played like this game called Maple Story, another like MMO, and then Guild Wars, which was interesting because as you mentioned, it's not like fully open world. It's like instanced areas, but then the town zone is where you like meet up with people, get into parties, go on adventures, and then you have your own instance. And that's super cool to hear that you've been playing Reforged, man, because I was actually thinking about picking that up for the nostalgia trip as well. Have you been enjoying it so far?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. I mean, I've kind of stayed in tune with Guild Wars in a way, because I played Guild Wars 2 as well, but that game never really gripped me in the same way. It's just not. It never really captured the magic of Guild Wars 1 for me, because like I think part of it was the fact that it wasn't actually an MMO. It had this kind of like almost like a bit of mystique compared to other games, right? Like this whole like instance thing going on, and it meant that they could create some really interesting content. Like dungeons and stuff like that were quite interesting in that game. Um, yeah, it's been amazing. It's been so much fun to just like dive back into that and kind of relive some of those memories. It's kind of interesting, I didn't really um with Path of Exile, right? Where I've never played an ARPG before Path of Exile, and I haven't played any other RPGs. Literally, only played Path of Exile 1 and 2. That's the only ARPGs I've ever played. For me, like
Damn.
it's very odd that I'm even playing an ARPG, but I didn't connect the dots until I watched a Chris Wilson interview. This was probably like 4 years ago now. At some point, there was like a Path of Exile 1 patch that went wrong, and it was like he was on like damage, going around to all of the content creators and doing interviews and stuff on like damage control, right? But in one of those interviews, he was talking about his like favorite games, and obviously we all know that Chris Wilson's favorite game is Diablo 2, but his second favorite game is Guild Wars 1. And I didn't really connect the dots until he started talking about Guild Wars 1 and why it was one of his favorite games. And you know that Chris Wilson is very much into Magic the Gathering as well. And that kind of shows through on some of the like skill design in Path of Exile. That's where a lot of those elements kind of link up for me. You know, like it's the build craft of Guild Wars is the thing that I've always loved, right? The idea that you can have all of these skills like combining together. You also have the inherent like profession mechanics and like the dual profession mechanics, and all of that stuff kind of you know, it's sort of linking in a way to the way Path of Exile buildcraft works. That was like the realization of, oh, this is why I like this game, right? Like this, like it's kind of was strange to me for a while as to why I actually liked Path of Exile, because ARPGs for me had never really been that interesting. But Path of Exile just did it, and that's yeah. When I watched that interview, I realized why. Like that's why I like Guild Wars, and that's kind of a lot of the inspiration there has come from that, like in terms of the skill design.
That's super interesting. It's been so long since I've played Guild Wars that I can't remember how the character progression skill tree or anything like that actually works, because I was in like elementary school or something when I played that game.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I definitely played a lot of Diablo 2, and I think it's super interesting as well that you never really got into that game. Was that like kind of just like a conscious decision? Like you must have seen like the Diablo franchise as a young person, you know, a young adult
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Did you kind of look at it and say, "Nah, that's not my jam," or were you just kind of really
Well,
into other games?
I had a friend at school who played Diablo, and I used to go around his house and we'd play Diablo together. But at the time, I was already playing Warcraft, right? Warcraft 3. And I remember that, like, I just didn't. I just want whenever I would play Diablo, it just made me want to play Warcraft 3 instead. Right? That was kind of my reaction to it.
Yeah.
So so for me, I guess it was just a case of like I preferred Warcraft 3. I think part of that was definitely the custom games, as I said, because if it wasn't for custom games in Warcraft 3, I probably would have bounced off of that game after a while, because like I did like the core of the game, but the custom games were what really kept me playing it. But yeah, I guess it was just a case of like other games hooked me more than that would have, so I just never ended up like playing it properly, right?
That's totally fair. It's also interesting that you totally missed World of Warcraft too, because I felt like that was such a natural progression. Being for myself in my experiences anyway, someone who really enjoyed just the world of of Warcraft 3 and of like the Thrones and Throne, like that whole storyline and like the the different you know kind of battles and then characters that exist in those games, and you kind of get to live in that world in that MMO. So it's also interesting that you kind of skipped over that one too. How did that happen?
That was so. I think I seem to remember that. So the reason why I got into Guild Wars in the first place was because a friend started playing it, and then like a couple of months later, I was around his house, and he was like, "Look at this game that I've been playing, or whatever." And then I started playing that like a month after. And I think that World of Warcraft released about a year before that. I think it was about a year between Guild Wars 1 and Warcraft. And I seem to remember that the monthly fee was part of that, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
Guild Wars 1 was this free to play game, like, or buy to play, and then there's no monthly fee. That was definitely part of it, because that was a big bonus of that type of game at the time, because it was all new, right? Like those sort of things didn't really exist at the time. Like World of Warcraft was one of the first games to actually have this kind of pay monthly system, and that kind of sounded very odd to a lot of people, especially like parents of kids that wanted to play it, right? And then you had Guild Wars that was his like a very similar, like from the outside it looked very similar looking into like this, and but that one was you pay for the game, and then you get to play it for free after that. You don't have to pay a monthly fee. So I think that was definitely part of it. And then once I actually started playing Guild Wars, I didn't want to stop playing it. Right, I didn't want to go and play something else. I just liked Guild Wars, so that was just that was just how it went. Right, that was just the game that I ended up really liking.
That's totally fair. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like the buy once and play for free until you had to buy, the next expansion pack was just like a nice thing. And you're absolutely right. The monthly subscription to World of Warcraft, especially for like us in our younger days, it was like a very much a privilege to have a parent that was like getting the credit card out for you, paying, I don't know what it was in the UK, but for us it was like $15 a month, which was like quite a bit of
Yeah.
money for like a 14-year-old to be asking to play a video game on top of buying the video game as well. So yeah, I think that that was definitely like a pretty huge deterrent for a lot of young people to get into
Yeah.
WoW. Before we move on, I wanted to just ask you, were there any other like really big standout games aside from like Warcraft 3, Dota, and Guild Wars that like left a lasting impression on you as a gamer before we get to more Path of Exile stuff?
Mm, I mean, I've played a lot of single player games. Like, I really like Skyrim. Like, I just like Elder Scrolls in general. Elder Scrolls is just one of those games where I've spent so many hours like rolling new characters and just doing whatever. Like, that's a very fun game. Loved Oblivion before it as well. Didn't really get into any of the earlier games, right? I know a lot of people prefer Morrowind to any of the games that came afterwards. I kind of played Morrowind after already playing Oblivion and Skyrim, and couldn't really get into it because a lot of the gameplay is quite clunky. But yeah, so yeah, definitely Oblivion and Skyrim are a big one, and also the Fallout games, especially New Vegas. I mean, New Vegas. I actually played New Vegas like a year ago when the Fallout show was on. Right, the Fallout show from Prime. I was like, I've got to play this game again. Right, it's just so good. So I just had a playthrough of New Vegas. Fallout's great as well, and I've played other single player games. I played Death Stranding when it came out in 2019, I want to say, which was great. I haven't played the new one yet because I just haven't had time. But yeah, so yeah, single player games are definitely something that I've enjoyed over the years, but I would say nothing has been quite as influential as Guild Wars and Warcraft 3.
That's cool. I remember when midnight launches were still a thing. I went to the midnight
Oh
launch
yeah,
of Skyrim. I was like in university. I was there at the door at like 12 o'clock midnight. And let's just say none of my schoolwork got done for the next week because I was just playing the fuck out of Skyrim. It's such a banger. What do you think about
yeah, yeah.
Bethesda nowadays? Like, did you end up touching Starfield at all? It kind of feels like they're sort of on a downward trajectory, minus the show. The show is a fucking banger. Like the Fallout
Yeah,
show, me and the lady, we watched it together, and I had no expectations for this thing. I was like, okay, this is a show based on a video game. It's probably going to be crap, but
that's also what I thought. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly what I expected it to be. But it's amazing. They've
it's
done it.
so good.
It's the best like video game adaptation that I've watched. I haven't watched many of them, but from a lot of the ones that I've heard about that I haven't watched, I've heard that they're just terrible, right? So this one immediately had me thinking like this is going to be bad. But they done a really good job, and what I like about what they did with the show is that it is very faithful to the Fallout franchise, right, and to
Yes.
the lore of the world. They kind of tried to like stay true to it. There are a few like weird plot points, but of course, like around the time of where it's set, which is like a little bit past New Vegas, there are like a lot of question marks for exactly what's going on in the world because Fallout New Vegas has a bunch of different endings. So realistically, like which one is actually true? Like, I guess they're going to get to that, in terms of the show. But yeah, really, really great show. I can't wait for the second season. It's coming up, I think, in just a couple of weeks. So
Yeah, it was a banger. It's funny because like the next season, for those of y'all who are listening or watching right now, is actually going to be in New Vegas. Just to elaborate on what Dreamcore is talking about, and it's also funny because like New Vegas, like Fallout 3 New Vegas, wasn't even made by Bethesda. It was made by like
yep,
Obsidian, and it's
Obsidian.
it's
Yep.
kind of regarded as like the best Fallout game, which which
That
like
is like you can tell when in interviews and stuff because like whenever that gets brought up with Todd, you can just tell he is absolutely seething. Like
yeah,
he just hates it, right?
yeah, for sure.
Because it's literally the truth. It's like if you look at all of those games, like New Vegas is just is the best game. Like especially Fallout 4, which was like a big, in my opinion, a pretty big downgrade compared to like Fallout 3 is better than Fallout 4 in my opinion. So it's yeah.
Yeah, it seems like with the Fallout games, I've watched. I'm a big fan of like retrospectives on YouTube. There's another guy who does a great job with retrospectives called Never Knows Best, I believe, on YouTube. If you guys are interested, I'll leave a link in the description where he kind of breaks down the series as it's unfolded, and he actually says that Fallout 1, even though it's like the first game in the genre, is actually the least Fallout of all of the games, because after Fallout 1, Fallout 2 actually developed its sort of like iconic humor style, where like now it's translated to the show and every game since, where
Yeah.
in the original game it was just super bleak, super depressing. Like it
Yeah.
was very much like you're in an apocalyptic world and it is a fucking bad time. Where now, like,
Yeah.
you know, the show and the games kind of have this sort of like they're making fun of everything in like a dark way,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is it's interesting that like they've kind of pivoted. But I do enjoy that attitude and that tone with the games.
Yeah, I mean the lore of Fallout is just absolutely awful. Like once you start to delve into like the stuff with the vaults and stuff, you know, it is actually horrific, right? So I think the idea of them like putting a sort of comical spin on it is probably a good idea, because a lot of it is like just nasty, right?
It's
So
bad. It's bad. Vault-Tec, they're not doing good stuff for the human race. Not to spoil anything, but yeah, I mean, I have high hopes, and also I'm also cautiously optimistic for the next whatever project that Bethesda does, because I know that they have such a loyal fan base for all of the incredible games that they've done, such impactful games. But yeah, it just seems like they've kind of had a few L's. Like Fallout 76 was a pretty big
yeah,
disappointment.
yeah.
Starfield was a pretty big disappointment. And it seems like
I haven't
over the
played
year,
either of those.
neither have I.
Uh,
I stayed
Yeah,
away
I didn't
from
play
them.
them.
Like the idea of a Fallout MMO was really, really cool, like in itself. But yeah, it just seems like they're kind of detached from what they are known for, which is super big immersive worlds that you can just explore and get lost in with infinite stuff to do. Like, you know, when you played Skyrim for the first time, you have a main quest, but then you see a path and you go up that path and there's a cave and there's a dungeon and then there's like a quest in there, and then you leave the cave and you're like, what the fuck was I doing? And there's a town there, and you just, and then the whole day goes by and you didn't do any main story quest, but you had an amazing time. And I feel like
Yeah,
as long as the next Elder Scrolls kind of brings that back, I think we'll be in good shape for Bethesda for sure.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of ask you before we get into more PoE2 stuff, just a bit about your content creation journey. So I do a deep dive on every person's YouTube channel when I have interviews with them. So you were no exception. I hopped on the Dreamcore YouTube channel, checked it out, clicked on that oldest button, and saw that the oldest videos that you have on your channel are from 2 years ago, and it's all PoE content. So I wanted to ask you, is PoE the game that you started making content for?
Yeah, it's so I actually made content earlier than that, and the videos don't exist anymore because they were absolutely terrible.
Okay.
So I think I want to say that like when I first started making videos, it was around patch 321 in PoE 1, Crucible League, I think. And I made some videos like in 315, so that would have been about a year and a half before that. Or maybe a little bit longer than that, 2 years, something like that. And those videos were literally just me with like Path of Building open. I'm just rambling, right? I'm actually just no scripts, no nothing. I'm just rambling like about, and I also had like a really bad microphone and stuff at the time. So that was like my first attempt at content creation. It was basically me just discussing like my ideas for like random skills and builds and stuff like that. It was completely like there was no real focus, and that's why those videos don't exist on the channel anymore. But yeah, it's always been Path of Exile. Like my content has changed a bit over time. It's gone from doing like more kind of basic. I still do that a little bit. I've done one for PoE2 where I discussed like how ailments work, but I mostly talk about like tech these days, right? Like I'll bring up like a unique item and talk about how it interacts with something else or whatever. That's like my main focus of the channel these days. Early on, it was more like beginner stuff, like how this works, how that works. But yeah, it's always been PoE2,
Got it.
PoE1 and PoE2. Yeah.
So you listed like 3.15. Just for the people who aren't like familiar with the timeline of PoE1 leagues, how long ago would you say that that was, just for context?
3.15 was about 12 leagues ago, but we had a 1 year gap. So that would have been, I want to say, like 4 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Because I started playing in patch 3.10 Delirium League, and that was right when the COVID pandemic started. Like part of the reason why I even started playing PoE in the first place was because of COVID.
Oh, I see. It was your
Like
COVID
COVID,
addiction. I see. I
yeah,
see.
COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
And then everyone was locked in their houses, and I like my what did for work was kind of like a bit up in the air. So I just was playing a lot of games, right? So that was kind of my friend had started playing PoE a couple of weeks before in the previous league, so he was playing like 3.09, and he was like, "This game's great," but he hadn't like done a league start, and he was like, "I'm going to play in a couple of days because a new league is launching." So I had no prep. I didn't even know what the hell the game was. Right, I'd heard about Path of Exile, but I had no idea, and I just jumped in, and yeah, that's history basically. I loved it, and that was it.
I feel like it's a really good game to get into, especially during COVID, because like the amount of the wealth of knowledge is just infinite with Path of Exile. And if you really just dive into it, there's just such a rewarding feeling of like constantly learning, building up that knowledge base. And it just feels good to like slowly feel like you're becoming more competent at the game, understanding things as they happen. And yeah, I've had a very similar feeling with going into 3.27, which is kind of my first real league where I've like, followed build guides, looked at resources and stuff like that. I had a video where I played blind and 3.26 that got some traction and got a lot of a lot
I
of
saw that video. It was a great video. It
oh, thanks, man.
was a really good video. Yeah.
A lot of people commented on that video. It's got like, I don't even know, almost 2,000 comments or something now, and told me I played the game wrong and I don't and all this type of stuff. And they don't understand that the hook of the video was trying to do it blind. Like that was the whole reason why I made it.
Yeah.
But I can definitely understand why people thought that way. I had so much more fun playing the game, doing my homework before, which is an interesting thing about Path of Exile, where like you kind of have to do your homework with the game, especially if you're getting into it in 2025 when there's so much stuff that's happened in the course of its whatever 13 years of development, right?
Yeah, I don't think the game's a very good blind game to play. Like, I'll just say it how it is. Like, the Path of Exile 1 doesn't have very good onboarding at all. New player experience is pretty terrible. If you're coming from Path of Exile 2, you'll probably have some things like already like you're just going to kind of something is going to snap into place for you. You're going to be like, oh, that's this, in this game, and like that's very familiar. But if you're completely new to the game,
I can't imagine.
It is not a good new player experience at all. Like from my perspective, I'm the type of person that if I like something, I'm gonna like really go all in on it. So like when I started playing Path of Exile 1, I remember having like 50 tabs open on the second monitor, right? Just like all these wiki pages and like PoE database, like trying to find out what everything meant, And like you'd research something, and then on that page you'd also see something else, and it'd be something else and something else. You're kind of going down this like rabbit hole of like, finding out different things. But it's because I just was really enjoying the game, right?
Absolutely.
Now other people will have that exact experience, and the moment they come up with those things, like what is this? They'll just switch off, and that'll be it. They won't come back.
100%.
I think that's what happens a lot with PoE 1, and that's probably why the game overall, is kind of like very. It's just not a very new player friendly game. But if you can get into it, it's a lot of fun.
And that's why I think people are so on point with saying that PoE 2 is the new tutorial for PoE 1, especially in the current state of this game, right? It's like, for me anyway, that's how I got into PoE 1, right? Is like I am one of those players now who are like, PoE 2 was my first introduction into raid class, into GGG, into the Path of Exile universe, and that actually brought me into PoE 1, and now I can say officially that I enjoy both games, that I look forward to playing, both games as, content, as the cadence of content comes out, which is, I think a goal that, obviously GGG has with Path of Exile 2 is like, at the end of the day, it's going to help people get introduced to not only PoE 2, but bring them into PoE 1 if they really, really enjoy what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they were going for. Like I think them trying to keep both games like separate in terms of like how they feel to play is definitely what they want. Whether the games will actually end up being that different in the end, I don't really know. But if they're able to keep them like separate enough that they feel different to play, but similar enough that the same people play them, right? That's kind of what they're going for. And you definitely still have that quite drastic distinction between the two. And there's like a PoE1 faithful of players, and there's a PoE2 faithful, and then there's like a crossover there in the middle. I'm part of that crossover, you're part of that crossover, and there's, you know, I don't know how many people there are actually, whether whether one's bigger than the other, one group's bigger than the other, but like that's what they're going for. I don't know how long they'll be able to do this this development cycle. I'm not convinced it's good for either game the way they're doing it right now. But it is what it is. That's what they're doing right now. So
Yeah, I hear you. And we will definitely talk about that. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you one final thing about your sort of your content creation journey. You said that you started basically making content, and PUE was the game that sort of got you out there, putting yourself on the internet about 4 years ago or so. I just wanted to ask, what about Path of Exile really like inspired you to want to make videos, initially rambling over POB and now elevating up to, you know, these high quality videos that you make? What about it really got you inspired, man?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's specifically like about PoE or whether it's just like me as a person, right? Because I think had I been like old enough when I was playing like Guild Wars, I probably and all that stuff would have been there, right? Like YouTube would have been a thing, and I'd have like, you know, all the creation tools and stuff. I probably would have made videos about that as well. Like there are people who make videos even today about Guild Wars 1, right? There is a very small like content creation group that make videos about that. So um, I'm not convinced that it's PoE1. It was just more a case of like the timing just all worked, right? Like I said, for playing Path of Exile, it just happened naturally. It was part of like, you know, my friend asked me to play, and then COVID was the thing, and it all kind of fell into place. And I think the content creation thing was also just kind of a natural thing. Is like, well, like I know a lot about the game, so me just like talking about what I know about it was just is just kind of something that, you know, I could do, and then that just kind of caught on, I guess. So it was just it wasn't really an intentional like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna make it as a content creator or something like that. That's just it just is what it, you know, that's what happened basically.
Okay. Okay. I see what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mean. So it's kind of like it was kind of like just a timing thing where like I was playing this game at this time, and then I started making
Yeah,
videos at this time.
obviously, like Path of Exile definitely grabbed me as a player, right?
Mhm.
Like I've not been so. It's no coincidence that I basically quit playing Dota 2 the moment I started playing Path of Exile. Like those two games cannot coexist for me, because like I said to you before, like I when I play a game like and I'm into it, I'm all in. I can't focus on two games at once, right? So basically, like all of the time I spent playing Dota translated over to Path of Exile.
I hear you.
So then I was like, then
I'm
I
not a
was a Path of
casual
Exile
either,
player,
so
right?
yeah,
At
it's
that point, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I think especially with games like Path of Exile or Dota or like things that have sort of either a deep knowledge or a mechanical skill requirement, it's kind of hard to play those games casually if you're really into them and you have the time that like, you know, you're able to spend the time like learning and developing. Like when I was playing Dota, I was like grinding that shit constantly. And there's, you know, as with Path of Exile, with Dota, there's updates, there's new heroes that get added, there's new tech, there's new items. It's like, you know, you're constantly kind of learning and reconfiguring, you know, what's the best like team comp against this particular team, and what items am I going to build in order to counter these specific heroes and their items and stuff like that. And it just felt never ending. And
yeah.
I feel like you know, there's definitely like a crossover I can definitely see with like, you know, my interest, your interest, and how PoE kind of is like the perfect sort of fit for that, but less toxic, dude, which is like a perfect thing that I want to bring up because I wanted to ask you. So, as you and I both know, the community in Path of Exile and in Path of Exile 2, for the large majority, is incredible. I think for me personally, I've had such a wonderful experience meeting so many cool people just from playing this game. And I'm honestly like super grateful because, yeah, I just feel like this is a special place within video games, a special place within like video game communities. It's awesome. And I just wanted to ask like how you feel about it all, and maybe why do you think that this like community has like a special sauce to it?
I think so. When it comes to the Path of Exile community, I think one thing you'll notice is like there's the type of creators. There's just so many different like what people like about the game is kind of very different. You've got people who like do mega juicing, right? And they're like all of their content revolves around these crazy strategies. Like they're constantly evolving the meta of like what's the best farming strategy. Then you could look at me, like me personally, I couldn't care less about farming strategies, right? Like I actually don't care at all. I prefer like all of the the mechanical interactions and like crazy unique items and stuff like that. That's like what I like. And then some other people will be all about speed running the campaign, right? Like how fast can you run the campaign, and like every single click matters, and like shaving seconds off of your time and doing it again and again and again. Like there's just so many different kind of ways to enjoy the game. I think that contributes massively to like how great the community is like as a whole, because no matter what type of player you are, you can find a home like with a particular creator or a particular set of creators that kind of appeal to why you like the game, right? There's many creators for all of these different things, and you can just you can just watch any of them because like that's the thing that like appeals to you as a player. So that's kind of how I see with the with the how good the community is. Now when it comes to like toxicity, I mean, it's definitely there, and it's been more of a thing I would say after PoE2 got split off into its own game. That was kind of when the toxicity kind of ramped up a little bit, unfortunately, because once PoE2 was like considered a separate game to PoE1, you then had like a sort of small minority of like the PoE1 audience that were very angry, and you had also the same thing coming from like a PoE2 only audience. I just tried to ignore it, to be honest with you. Like any other creator, I get like a bunch of weird comments, and you just ignore it. Like I don't have any care for like any drama, right? Like drama just doesn't appeal to me at all. Like like if any other creator like starts saying stuff about my content or whatever, I just really couldn't care less, right? It is what it is. Like there is going to be toxicity. I expect that we'll be having more of that as like the whole sort of PoE1, PoE2 releases happen, and that's just what it's going to be like that for a while, I think, until both games are in a better place, like especially with PoE2 in terms of it being like more complete. But yeah, overall, like if you're able to ignore that part of it, Path of Exile community is really great. Like it covers a lot of bases, and it's yeah, like I said, you can find a home no matter what player you are.
Yeah, I love that answer. It's something that I truly do love about these games as well, is that like you're absolutely right. There's so many ways to just enjoy them. You could be a challenge run enjoyer, basically beating the game like it's Dark Souls using a basic attack and playing all the way until Arbiter, and that could be the way that you enjoy the game. Or you could sit in your hideout and just flip items all day and just like min max your like divines, and like that's a way you could play and
Yeah.
craft and stuff like that. Like you could play hardcore, you could play softcore. I think the more ways that we can enjoy the game, the better. And there really is this special thing, and I think my friend Timmy, who I had on the podcast, he said a special thing about this game as well. You're not ever taking anything from a player. The only thing you're doing in Path of Exile is giving to people. You're trading with people, you're giving information, you're giving knowledge, you're sharing something. And that's just like intrinsically positive, where I feel like when we're playing games like Counter-Strike, Dota, we're taking your elo, we're taking your characters, like your shit. You know what I mean? Like those games, any competitive game is basically based around the act of taking shit from other people. And that just is intrinsically toxic in some way, shape, or form. And I come from an era, especially like back in the day, where like I played StarCraft when I was a kid, Warcraft 3. When you lost in those games or when you won, you still said GG, well played. Like that was just like common like etiquette back in the day for like real-time strategy games. I don't know if you remember like that era of like GG, well
Yep.
played. But that was the thing, man. And that's definitely been lost to the ages now. That's like that's like a boomer take now, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, no, I remember that. Even like just playing like early Dota was like that, right? Everyone would be like GG, well played. Like in Dota custom games, even like early Dota 2 was like that. But I think part of that is like the scene growing. That the community, like especially for Dota, was like very tightly knit, right? There wasn't a giant community. Obviously, like Valve saw opportunity to make Dota 2, and then they made it this huge thing. But part of that is definitely the community just like ballooning to unmanageable size almost, right? And then you kind of have yeah, I don't want to say bad actors, but yeah, generally it's just like you have some people that are maybe not quite as nice, I guess, and then like that kind of translates into like other people see that and they're like, oh, okay, I guess that's just normal or that's like commonplace.
Yeah.
So that's what happens with that.
It went from like GG well played to like really dark, terrible things that if you like underperform or something like that. And it's funny because with PoE, it's like there is no PvP, right? Would you ever think that GGG would add in PvP to PoE 2 at any point? What is your like stance on PvP?
um, do I think they will, or do I think they should?
Well, I think you let's go with do you think they will first?
No,
No.
I don't think they will, and I don't think they should.
Okay.
That's um, the reason why I don't think they will is because they already did PvP in PoE one, and it wasn't ever very popular, and it also like they had the like PvP arena type thing, which was never very popular, and then they also had the like deathmatch type thing, right? Which that one was more popular, but it kind of like they started to do it on like a schedule where they would bring it back and bring it back, and then like what happened was the player numbers just dwindled over time, and then eventually they decided that it wasn't worth it and they just took it away permanently, right? I think that PvP in this type of game just it basically cannot work. That's just my opinion of it. Like all of the items and stuff like that are all designed to be used against monsters that have a very specific, amount of life and damage numbers and all these things. When it comes to player versus player, it's just not. It's just not going to work with these items. It would take so much balance on their end to do that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like in a world in a world of balancing nightmares, we would add another balancing nightmare to it. But you know what's funny, Dreamcore, is like Diablo 2 did it and it was fun and it added another way to enjoy the game, which is kind of circling back to what we were talking about, where like there was a whole group, there still is a very niche community of people. All they do is PvP in Diablo 2. They're in the rogue encampment and they're just beating the shit out of each other, taking each other's ears. And like, that's cool. Like, if you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as long as that, in my opinion, as long as that's not like mandatory for like player progression, like, if that's a way that people can enjoy this game, I don't think it should be high on the priority list, but I think that it'd be cool if like they added PvP in. How they would balance it, I have no idea. They're having what seemingly a tough time balancing the game against PvE right now, so I don't know how it would
Yeah.
work, but I do think that like, in a perfect world, if there was some sort of arena-based system and they could balance it, I think it would be fun, man. Like they have a good thing going on, especially with like the more combo-based stuff, the meaningful combat stuff. If that can be preserved in like a PvP format, I think it could be interesting.
If they can make the PvP game mode without wasting too much of the resources that would be going on developing the main game that like 99.99% of players play, then sure.
For
But
sure.
if it's gonna take away from the main development of the game, there's no way.
Definitely,
I see it.
100%. Yeah, so I got a big question for you, and we sort of have been alluring to this throughout this podcast, but I wanted to get your opinion. So, with GGG working on both games simultaneously, do you think that this is impacting Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 in a negative way?
Yes. I think that's actually kind of obvious from the most recent releases, like 3.27 and 3.26, and also PoE2 just missing like deadlines. So it's not really deadlines, right? But missing the things that they said were going to be in the patch, or the things that were obviously meant to be in the patch. Like, for example, in patch 0.3, it was kind of obvious that Trial of the Ancestors was meant to be there, and they even said that in the Q&A. Like afterwards, we didn't know that it was meant to be there because we didn't know what was coming before, but it was missing, right? And then for 0.4, they had meant to have the Endgame stuff. They're meant to have Trial of the Ancestors. None of that stuff is there. And I think for PoE 1, on that side of things, you can kind of see that, like, for me, it's like the quality bar is just not there anymore. Like, the quality of releases used to be a lot higher than it is now for PoE1, and I think it's kind of obvious what's going on there, right? They just don't have as much time or resources to spend developing PoE1 because the large majority of their development, process is being spent on PoE2. Like that's just what's happening. I'm of the opinion, and I say this as a player with no understanding of how GGG's internal workings. I don't know what's going on there, right? I have no idea. But in my opinion, the moment PoE2 split to be its own game, they should have made a separate studio to develop PoE1, like in the long term. Because it was clear that as soon as PoE2 is its own game, the majority of the effort is going to be PoE2, and that makes sense, right? It's a game that they've been working on for all of these years in the background, right? This is obviously the next generation of ARPG. Like they've been working on it for a long time. They've been putting so much effort into it, so much money. Of course, like the majority of the workforce is going to be working on PoE2. That just makes sense. The fact that they are having the same like team or like part of the same team. I don't know how many people are actually permanently working on PoE2 and how many people change between the two. But the fact that must be really jarring. It's jarring for me as a player, right? I'm sure it is for several players. Switching between PoE1 and PoE2 is very jarring because even though the mechanics have like similar or the same names, in the games they work differently. Like ailments work differently in both games, right? Lots of these things like work differently. So you have to kind of remember, like, oh, I'm playing this game. That's how it works. So, like, in my opinion, they should have had a smaller studio, right, that they created to work solely on PoE1 and continue developing that game. It's obvious that the game is still going to make them a lot of money in the long term. There's a lot of dedicated PoE1 players, right, that buy supporter packs and buy MTX and buy, stash and stuff like that, stash tabs. So, yeah, that's, in my opinion, that's how they should have done it. I don't even know if that's feasible, by the way. I'm just suggesting something that might not even be a thing, right? Might not even be a thing, because we already know that there's like a lot of old school devs that work on both games, and that they're basically irreplaceable from what we've heard from Jonathan, right? They're like, I remember him saying there's like a handful of people in the company that can make on-site balance decisions. So like, if you don't have one of those in the team for PoE1, like, imagine you threw a bunch of developers into PoE1 that had no idea what this game was. Like, that'd be an absolute nightmare, right? You need some of those like old guard developers to be there working on it. But yeah, that's what I would have hoped they would have done. I think the whole like switching between the two, I just don't see it working in the long term. Like, I feel like it's already been, the cracks are already showing. And whether they kind of slow down a bit, let's say they do, instead of doing a release for each game every 4 months, which is currently, for the players who play both games, it's a release every 2 months, right? Let's say they slow from 2 months to 3 months, which would mean it was 2 6-monthly release for each game, right? Whether that's how they would get like better results, whether the quality bar would then be whether you get there, I don't know. But right now, to me, I think it's not working, and I think we're beginning to see that. Like, we're beginning to see what's happening with that, and I don't know how they're going to make it work in the long term.
Yeah, it's a very unique situation with GGG where they've already created basically a masterpiece in terms of an ARPG, and now they're competing against themselves to make another masterpiece. And it's like they've already solidified themselves as like the industry leader in action RPG games, and they have done this for quite some time now. And there's not really like another company out there that has like two products made by the same company competing against one another. Almost, it feels like there's sort of like this like push and pull. So yeah, it is an odd and particular situation that they've kind of found themselves in. Just sort of as a follow-up to sort of this topic, we don't know, as you mentioned, the resource allocation and how they're sort of doing it with the staff members there. We don't know how many people are working on one game, how many people are working on both games. In your sort of opinion, what do you think, maybe in terms of percentage-wise, how should they be doing it? Like, do you think that it should be like a 50-50 on either game? Do you think that PoE 1 deserves like less, or and PoE 2 deserves more? Like, where do you feel like they should be kind of allocating their resources and their talent?
Um, if they continue the one studio working on both games, you mean like
Yes.
in the current situation? Obviously more needs to be spent on PoE 2. Like it would make no sense if it's not like that, right? Because at the end of the day, like even if you're just a PoE 1 player, right, and maybe you don't like PoE 2 at the moment, or like you're sort of staying in touch with it, you're just like following its development, but you're not convinced that it's the game for you. You got to be realistic. Like this is the new game that they're working on. It's obvious that this is like way higher budget than Path of Exile 1 ever was. Obviously they need to dedicate more resources to PoE 2. Like that's just by the way, they already are. Like it's pretty obvious that they already are. Like they're I would say in terms of the amount of time and resources, I would say it's probably already like 80-20.
Oh,
Right?
really? Okay, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's got to be like already 80-20 because what's happening is like every PoE 1 league is just a bunch of PoE 2 assets, right, that they're using. And they've been doing that for a long time, by the way. Like as far back as like 3.15 or something, they've been like taking assets from PoE 2. But that was before it was even a separate game, right? Like I'm pretty sure all of that stuff, like Expedition and things like that, was all designed with PoE 2 in mind when that like release was going to come out. And then obviously at some point, PoE 2 became its own game, which made it kind of blurred the lines of that a little bit. But I'm pretty sure that's all of those things have been designed with that in mind from the beginning. I think it's already like 80-20 because what's going on with PoE 1 is like they're kind of, as I said, the quality bar just isn't really there anymore for the releases. It feels like they're probably like scrambling to put that stuff together. And we also, one of the other things we don't get anymore for PoE 1 is the post-patch like patches or updates, right? They would usually be very kind of dedicated on those, and they would be really impactful in the past. For example, I mean, the most recent example I can give is the 327, like the whole breach encounter with the walls, right? That would have just been the week 1 patch, walls gone, right? That's how it would have been like a couple of years ago. Week 1 patch, the walls would have been gone. They would have buffed Graph Blood. They would have done a lot more, right, with that patch in terms of like the player complaints. It's obvious that there already isn't, anywhere near as much resources being dedicated to PoE 1, which I think is fine. But I do think that if they want to continue this like whole developing both games at the same time, they either need more people working on each game, i.e. like hiring more people, which I know is very difficult for them, or they need more time. They need to allocate more time to it, which means that the releases are going to have to be a bit more delayed, right? Then, like I said, they're going to have to be, rather than every 2 months, it's every 3 months, which would be 2 releases a year for each game. That's kind of how I see it. I think there already is a very big majority of development resources being spent on PoE 2. And that's kind of how I kind of feel like they're already doing all of the things that you would expect is the correct thing to do in terms of like resource allocation, but it's just not really a thing that can work long term in the way that they're doing it right now. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's interesting because it seems like when you get a job at grinding your games, you are in there for the long haul. Like you're just there for years and years and years. You love the project so much. You're like playing the game, and there's only so many people out there I could imagine who live in New Zealand who are talented game developers for the specific, like a job that they need at that time, who play PoE, who know the game, who love the game. And they probably have like accumulated as many people as they can from within this region that fit that requirement, that are also just down to be there for the long haul. Like they're down to just be there because I would imagine to get a job with GGG, Like it is you're investing in these employees because to familiarize yourself with the development of this game, with all of the aspects of this game, it probably requires a lot of time with the company just to like get a grasp on, especially if you're doing like balance and stuff like that. Like it must just be like an immense like task. And so yeah, I don't know how they're gonna figure it all out, man, but it's interesting and it would be a cool case study actually to compare sort of, how other companies have developed multiple projects. Like, but the first one that comes to mind is Blizzard, for example. Like when Blizzard went from Diablo 3 to Diablo 4, did they have just full two different teams? Did they have one team working on it simultaneously? I'm pretty sure it's two different teams because, Diablo 3 is still being developed actively. They're in season 37 right now, which just launched. There are people blasting it still, which is cool because people still love that game. And I really hope that that is the same fate that Path of Exile encounters as well. Is that even though there's a bigger, brighter, shinier, more lucrative new game, that GGG continues to still show love and show support for a game that people still enjoy to play. Do you think that PoE 1 will encounter that fate, or do you think that it may enter some sort of like maintenance mode down the road where it's just like bare minimum, like not really any new content? What do you think about all that?
That's really hard to say because I think like when we had like the 1 year break after 3.25, a lot of players had already like resigned that was it, right? That was like this was the end of PoE 1. Like there's going to be maybe a couple more like maintenance style patches, or maybe we're going to get like one league a year or something like that, right? I think people had already resigned that, and now they're kind of back to doing the regular releases, right? 3.27 was the actual return to that because technically 3.26 was the first patch we had in a year. So them kind of releasing 3.27 on time was definitely like an indication that this is going to be a thing. Whether it goes into like more of a maintenance mode, I mean, I feel like that's kind of inevitable at some point. Because the thing is, as PoE 2 gets developed more, the game is just going to get better and better. And as it gets better, the more of the players that only played PoE 1 and could never even think about, like, could never even imagine the idea of playing PoE 2 are going to come round to the idea of playing PoE 2. That's kind of how I see things going. So, and when that happens, the question then is whether the turnout rate for PoE 1 leagues is going to be there anymore. Because I got to say, like, from my perspective personally, the current release schedule of every 2 months, it's pretty tiring, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that I make content for both games, right? So like, I'm spending more time making videos and stuff as well. I mean, especially this one going from 3.27 to 0.4, there was like no break at all, like no gap, right? And for me, I wanted to play more builds in PoE 1 because this league we had the Foulborn Uniques, which was just absolutely crazy to me. I love that kind of stuff. I mean, I had some other ideas for builds, but I knew, like, I was thinking, I'm going to roll a new build. And then the PoE 2 announcement came out of like, here's 0.4, we're going to announce it in the next couple of weeks. And I'm like, okay, well, guess I'm not going to roll a new character because when I get to PoE 2, I don't want to be burned out. Like, for me, the old schedule of a league every 3 months was pretty much perfect in terms of release cadence because I enjoy that like 1 month gap, right? I enjoy being able to unwind from the game and just not think about the game at all for a month. And then when it actually comes up again, when the new league comes around, you can be really excited for it, right? Like the new league comes around, all of this new hype stuff, like you start to theory craft what you're going to play and stuff like that. So, yeah, like that's pretty much how I feel about it. I think that it's kind of inevitable that happens with PoE 1 because over time PoE 2 is going to get a lot better. Therefore, more people are going to play PoE 2, and if the release cycle is kind of burning people out, then which game are people not going to play, right? If you think about it, if you play both games, and PoE 2 is the better game now because it's higher quality, it has all of these new crazy things going on, which game are you not going to play? It's going to be PoE 1. So if less players are turning out for PoE 1, then for them internally, it's going to be less. You know, they're going to have less incentive to work on the game. So it's kind of a self-defeating thing, right? Like eventually it just happens on its own, right? Less players playing PoE1, less development resources allocated, and then which results in less players, which results in less development. So that's just what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. The people who say I will play PoE 2 once there's something to do in the end game are going to come around, and then once they keep, developing it more and more and more and polishing it and, adding everything, it's like there's going to be less and less reasons for people to not want to play the game, especially when it has a rivaling amount of complexity, depth, and crafting and understanding and stuff like that. All the draws that keep people playing PoE1 for so long. Like once that's translated into PoE2 more, there's really going to be not too many reasons to just only play the one game, right? And you're absolutely
Exactly,
right.
yeah.
I think it comes down to like, the game will be supported as long as there's people playing. And I think there always will be people that play PoE1. It's like Diablo 2, man. Like I feel like Diablo 2, 25 years later, still has a really dedicated fan base of people that just love the game so fucking much. And despite them maybe playing other ARPGs, that's the one they always go back to. And I think PoE will always be that for players as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. There will definitely always be players. I'll carry on playing the game for a long time. I know that, for sure. I know that a lot of like the hardcore PoE1 audience will carry on playing the game for a long time because the core of the game is great. And even in these leagues where like you're a bit, what's going on? Like this isn't great. Like 327 was that. Like I could still play the game for like 2 or 3 characters and enjoy myself because the core of the game is just so good. So yeah, there will definitely be players for a long time, and I think that like realistically, in terms of them developing content for PoE1, it will probably be feasible for them to do that for a very long time because even if the sort of total player base dwindles a bit, I still think they're going to make a lot of money, like in terms of profit, compared to how much they actually invest into developing the game. So yeah, I think PoE1 will still get updates for a while. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so I have some more questions about just like the general like zero point 0.4 stuff. But before we get into more of this, I just wanted to check in with you. We're at about an hour and 10 minutes. How are you doing and how are you feeling?
Yeah, we can go for a bit longer. It's all good.
All right, cool, man. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. This is by no means the end, but I'm having a wonderful time chatting with you, and I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yep.
So with zero point 0.4, you did a video, a kind of a, I feel like you've coined sort of this classic biggest winners or losers. In this video, you talked about the Pathfinder, right, as one of the big winners of zero point 0.4. Is this something that you're interested in league starting, or what are sort of like the things that you're interested in league starting at this time?
So I league started Pathfinder in 0.3. I played a poison gas grenade setup, which was a lot of fun. Played that character all the way through the end game, done all of the bosses, did all the content on it. I don't think I'll start Pathfinder in this patch, but maybe I'll start Pathfinder. Who knows? I actually don't really know what I'm going to play yet. I've thought about it a little bit. Like I would like to try some of the new skills out, but I'm not sure if it's going to be on a druid or whether it'll be on something else. I do really like the idea of sorceress at the moment on the Stormweaver because, and I made a video about that yesterday.
Yep, I watched that one.
Limit skills are looking really good. Like they're just that sort of stuff is starting to. For a while, it's kind of been approaching like critical mass. Is how I would describe it. Right?
Yeah.
Is where you just have like you have all of these effects that just persist. Right? I mean, this was so going back. This is going way back, right? We're going back into like 5 years ago, right, or something. Because I started playing PoE1 after first ExileCon, and then I kind of watched ExileCon, like the VODs of it, right? And one of the things was the new gem system they talked about for PoE2, right? The whole like you can have all of these like 6 links, right? And to a PoE1 player, this was like, how is this going to actually work, right? Because in the context of PoE1, like if you have a bunch of 6 links, duration-based skills are just king, right? Like things like Cold Dot, for example, right? How a Cold Dot build works in PoE1 is you usually use your 6 link for 2 5 links. You have 4 support gems that then affect both of the active skills, right? Then you also have another like pseudo 5 link in your helmet or whatever. So you have like all of these duration skills that overlap on top of each other and deal their damage at the same time. Back then, I was like, how are they going to balance duration skills? Like any of these like duration things, like fire dot, cold dot, like anything like that. Now that we have PoE2, limit skills have been on my radar for a while, and in this patch, limit skills are actually just going crazy. Like I'm pretty sure it is reaching that critical mass. You already had like solar orb, orb of storms, firestorm, right? All of these skills have like limit of 1 baseline. So you use the skill, it's there. Okay, it's great. It's lasting like 6 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, some of them. Then you use it again, the old one gets deleted. But you could use all 3 of them at the same time if you want. You can drop an orb of storms, solar flare, and firestorm on top of one guy, which is pretty good. Like that's you're dealing consistent damage. Those things are consistently dealing damage over time, and then you can still do something else while they're happening. But in 0.4, the Stormweaver's notable is going from +1 limit to +2. So all of those skills will have 3 baseline limit. And then there's also another 2 skills being added in this patch. Volcano and Thunderstorm. Right? 2 more limit skills. So you've got 5 limit elemental skills that are all going to have a limit of 3. Okay? So you can literally just drop all of these effects on like, and also there's the advancing storm support, which you can put on your thunderstorm and on your firestorm, so they move like along with with you. I just think that just looks like a really cool archetype, and it's so like it's very straightforward. Like there's nothing really that interesting going on. You just have so many effects like overlapping on top of each other. So yeah, that's something that I think could be really strong in 0.4.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that video was really fun, and it's just something that I haven't really seen in terms of tech wise, like taking advantage of having multiple, I guess, versions of the same skill. You could even put a overabundance in there as well for like an extra one as well. And then I think you mentioned in your video, there's a notable on the passive tree that also gives you an additional cast of certain orb skills. So you could have like 5 potentially orbs on the battle. I don't know if like that's actually worth doing, as you mentioned in your video, but it is pretty crazy to be able to do that.
It is.
Yeah, I love where your head's at with this, and I'm excited to see if you end up cooking with this particular idea, because it does sound like it's going to get out of hand, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. That looks a lot of fun. But I mean, other than that, I do like the look of the other druid stuff, like the transform skills, and the like the watering the plants thing. That made me laugh, like it did many creators. But that looks really good. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Those skills actually look really good. They look very, very strong. So that is. Yeah, that looks like that would be a good league starter, I think. Like the whole plant-based setup with like the watering the plants to make them stronger.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the synergy between skills is something that that actually really stood out to me from like the very moment that I played PoE2. Like I remember the first time I like played a sorceress, I had spark, put down a firewall, and saw those sparks go through the firewall and they lit up, and I was like, that's crazy. And then I was playing with a friend who's a mercenary, and he shot his armor piercing rounds through the firewall and they caught on fire. And I was like, that's fucking crazy. And like, like shit like that is like very unique to Path of Exile 2. These like synergies that happen between spells, and that can influence multiplayer play as well. And so I love kind of all these things that are happening. And I like how they're adding sort of more stuff with like the watering of the plants and how that enhances lightning damage and like all this type of shit as well. Kind of, just adding more to that. I think for me, in terms of league start, from a hardcore context, I'm kind of looking at 3 different builds right now. I'm making a video on this, kind of outlining my 3 like best league starters. None of them have to do with shapeshifting right now, because I feel like that's very much something that is going to have to be tested in order to like claim it's a good league starter and that it's not bait. I feel like if you claim that shapeshifting right now is the best league starter, you're just trying to bait people pretty hard. It looks really cool though. Like I like the idea of playing like an ice wolf invoker, like something that like, takes advantage, especially in hardcore, like taking advantage of the Invoker Ascendancy, but also playing, maybe a mixture of Quarterstaff and like transformation with Wolf looks pretty interesting. And then Smith of Gatava looks really, really cool now. I think they've kind of brought
Yeah,
that class back. They definitely nerfed it a bit too hard in 0.3. So it's cool to see that we're getting, these changes to Smith's Masterworking with the 100% reduction to crit damage and the like, no damaging ailments addition as well. Like those things are massive
that's
for
a really good one. I like
those things
that.
are
Yeah, that's
huge
good.
for hardcore
Yep.
players. Like, and then you're getting the resistance capped with fire res super easily, so you can actually like add additional spirit rolls if you want to. If you want to roll rarity on your gear, you can do that because it kind of just opens up more flexibility with your gear modifiers. So those are two things that I want to cook in this 0.4, but they're definitely going to be, I think, like secondary characters. Right now, for me, I think the best hardcore league starters are Essence Drain, Contagion, Lich with Bone Storm. I'm actually testing that right now. It's insanely strong. Somehow it dodged any nerf at all in the patch. Basically, the only nerfs, I was talking with Dead Rabbit earlier, are just like pack size and mob density are kind of just like an inherent nerf to the build. And then maybe if there's any like additional nerfs to Energy Shield, which they talked about. But other than that, like the skills themselves are the exact same. And like by the end of 0.3, Essence Drain, Contagion and Lich are like the most played Ascendancy in hardcore on SSF and in normal hardcore. And then I don't
Yep.
know if you ever looked at like Shield Wall, but Shield Wall is so
It's
fucking
really
good.
good.
And it didn't get
Yep.
touched at all on any, like, so it would work on any warrior build. It also could work on Druid too, based on the starting point on the tree. And then the final one is
Yeah.
just grenades. Like grenades somehow.
Grenades are so strong. They're just
Yes,
so good.
they're so good. And
Yeah.
I feel like right now, and I would implore you to take a look at this. I would love to see a Dreamcore video looking at immobilization tech. If you have time to look at this, you definitely should. There's a lot of stuff in the patch notes right now talking about increases to not only like immobilization chance, but also damage and stacking damage on immobilized enemies. Like
Yep.
there's Siege Cascade, like one of the spells that basically just never got used with crossbow that now does like 100% more damage to immobilized enemies, like as just a base buff on the in the patch notes. And like there's a lot of stuff like that, so it is cool. And I think that all can be applied to grenades as well. So those are my three like potential starting builds, but I'm not entirely sure which one I want to go with yet.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of hard, it's funny you say about hardcore. I mean, I think I'll probably play hardcore in because I play hardcore in PoE1. I've played hardcore since like 3.13, I think. Right? I can't play softcore in PoE1. It's just not interesting to me. But for PoE2, the balance of the game has constantly like made me not play hardcore because I'm just like so it's funny when I went back to like going back to PoE1 for a moment. The sort of reason why I started playing hardcore was I started playing slightly before that. It was like 2 weeks before that, but they like changed up the way defenses worked in patch 3.16, and then they started to like from that point onwards they started to add more and more interesting defensive options, which is why I really like hardcore because you get rewarded for investing defensively, right?
Yes, dude.
Kind of
Absolutely.
prior to that didn't really exist. There was only like chance-based defenses like block and dodge, and every single character in hardcore was one of those two, or maybe even sometimes combining the two. And obviously it didn't feel great when you died because your chance-based defenses didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in PoE1, like there's really interesting defensive. I think once PoE2 has got to that state where there isn't like these weirdly overtuned monsters, and by the way, that is kind of always a thing. Like in the one of the like funniest things is League Start. You watch like Zizaran, right? Zizaran always just does the League mechanic regardless. He just is playing hardcore. He just does the League mechanic, and a lot of the times he just dies to the League mechanic, right? And then you got like some other streamers who like have people in their chat like, "Oh, Zizaran just died to the League mechanic," and then they're like, "Okay, I'm not going to do the League mechanic. I'm just going to ignore it." So yeah, that is kind of always the thing with hardcore. But for me, I think once the balance of PoE2 is in a better state, not just in terms of monsters and like outliers, but also player agency over defenses. I don't really think it's quite there yet, in my opinion. It's just not that interesting. That is when I'll start playing hardcore in PoE2, and once that happens, I won't go back to softcore. Right? That's kind of the same thing for PoE1. Like I literally can't play softcore in PoE1. Just don't enjoy it.
I feel the
So
exact same way
yeah.
about PoE too, and it's funny that you mentioned like because I didn't know that you're a hardcore player, so fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, when I went back to play PoE one for 3.27, I made a Earthshatter Berserker, and I played hardcore, and this is like my first
Yeah.
league, so like my first real league. But I followed an I'm Exile build, who I'm sure you know of, obviously, and
Yep.
this build was so fun. And what I learned is that defenses are so much more interesting in PoE one because there's so many more layers and things to do. You know, you have like spell suppression, you have endurance charges that actually do something, you have fortify, you have life scaling, you have armor scaling, you got block, you have all these different things. Like the list goes on,
Yep.
right? And it's cool as you kind of progress through your character, you kind of go through stages of, okay, my resistances are capped. I have good armor. Now I can start working in fortify. Now I can start building up endurance charges. And now I can start getting spell suppression at the, kind of as the cherry on top. And it
Yep.
makes PoE 2's defenses just feel so boring by comparison. And I
Yeah.
understand that, like, for new players, it's so much easier to just be like, oh, how do I make my character more tanky? I need to get my resistances max, and I need to improve the two defensive layers that I'm using. Or in some cases, some people just go all in on one defensive layer, like energy shield, and they're fine. You know what I mean? Whereas with PoE
Yep.
1, it's very much like this interesting puzzle to solve defenses, and that's why I love hardcore. It's because you have to really figure that out before you even worry about your damage. Like it's, it's a balancing act, right? And yeah, it's cool to
Yeah.
hear that you kind of going through that. And I really do think that if you try hardcore in PoE 2, you'll enjoy it because the gameplay is really conducive to the hardcore experience when everything is working properly. Which
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it feels really good to play on hardcore as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know why in PoE 2 it feels to me like from a balance perspective, it feels like they're less inclined to add like interesting, strong defensive mechanics to the game compared to offensive things, right? I'm not sure what exactly is going on there. Like Zizaran brought this up in an interview with them at some point, and they didn't really like. I remember the I can't remember the exact discussion point, but I think it was like if I'm in a boss fight, right? What's worse, the fact that I one shot the boss and the boss does no mechanics, or the fact that I can tank the boss without the boss killing me,
Yeah, I
right?
remember that. With a significant
Um,
investment, you should be able to do either
yeah,
one, right?
and the thing is, in Path of Exile 2, right, you can, okay, you actually can do that now. To be fair, I've seen several people like tanking arbiter corridors and stuff like that, so you can actually do that.
Mhm.
But the methods to getting there are very very slim, right? There's not many ways to tank the arbiter corridor or like the other things, right? Whereas there are many ways to one shot the boss.
Yeah.
Okay, you can basically one shot the boss with any archetype because like that damage scaling is absurd in the game right now. And you could just do absolute giga damage with like anything, right? I wish there was more options defensively. Like that's what I want. I want more interesting options. I want those trade-offs, right? Like when I'm investing into defenses in PoE 1, I really feel that trade-off. I'm tankier, but I don't deal as much damage. That is what I want for PoE 2. Like I want those interesting options in the game. And once it's there, I know for sure I'm going to play hardcore, right? That's just a given. It's going to happen because I'm that type of player. Um, and I did wonder for a while with PoE 2, like especially when it was first announced as a separate game, and they kind of had this idea of like one portal, right, for maps and things like that.
Yeah.
I wondered whether that like medium core experience would like translate into to me as a player as like, is this like enough, right? But now they've kind of taken away a lot of those things, like the original medium core things. Some of them are still there. But for example, like in the bosses, like in the first tier of a boss, you can just die. You can just die, right, without losing experience and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm not really a big fan of that. So, and that's kind of goes in the way of me enjoying hardcore, right? So, yeah. Once they have those defensive things in there, and look, I think they're going to come. Like Mark has said several times in those Q&As, whenever like those points have been brought up, he has always acknowledged it a bit more than Jonathan, I think. I'm not sure. That interview, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. That was the like notorious interview where like everything was a bit heated at the start, right? like between Zizaran and the developers. Like I think it was
Yeah.
that one interview.
Yeah.
So that was, hopefully they can get that kind of topic again in another interview where things aren't so like confrontational, because I remember like some of the replies that Jonathan was giving, and obviously some of the questions from Zizaran, they were a bit like hostile in a way, right? And it's like I don't think, I think there needs to be a bit more like level-headedness when they talk about this kind of stuff, because like it is kind of important in an RPG when like someone's trying to create their own character and they have a specific idea in mind. Like, why shouldn't someone be able to make like an immortal character if they hit like a wet noodle, right?
For sure. Dude, we
Like,
should
what's the
yeah, we should have that. It's like you can have the character that does like 30 million tooltip damage in Path of Exile 2, but you're
yeah
still going to get one shot, even if you spend all of your passive points and
yeah
all of your gear is just only defensively focused. Like, yeah, it feels like the scales just need to be adjusted so that we can kind of do both if we want to. And that's the
yeah? I just
beauty of
want more
Sandbox.
options.
Yeah.
Right, I just want more options in that way. Like, there are some ways right now that you can become really tanky, but I want more of that.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
For sure. No, we talked about that interview like today, honestly, and like I will hold strong on my respect for GGG for that interview, because not many game developers would do a massive interview like that in front of thousands of players after
Yep.
such a rocky launch. Like the balls, and that's just mad respect, man. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that
They've always been good for that sort of stuff. Like
yeah.
I talked about it earlier. The Chris Wilson, he done like, I want to say it was like 6 or 7 podcasts after this like disaster league, right?
Mhm.
From the community perspective, it was like a disaster league. It had like a pretty negative response generally, and he just went around to a bunch of different podcasts, different content creators, and he just done like hours of discussion, right? So they have done this for a long time. This is not like something new. And it's great. Like it's great to have that open discourse as well with the community and like have those questions asked. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think it really helped kind of solidify why I love this game so much. It was sort of when I started playing Path of Exile, which was December 4th or whatever the day that PoE2 came out. I grew to love the game from the experience of playing the game, and then through the experience of how GGG had interacted with the player base and like communicated and was just very transparent with like what they were doing and stuff like that. Like that kind of like solidified um the love for the company and for the game in a time where like the games industry has sort of got to this point where there's a lot of these like giga corporations who like all they care about is like making cash and then not caring about the players. And then we've kind of gone full circle, and now we have these indie devs who are like making games that they want to make, and they're like outselling and having more players than like these AAA titles. So in a
Yep.
very convoluted game like development and video game kind of an ecosystem, I feel like GGG kind of is that like, that one of the outliers, which is they're not a tiny company anymore, but they're still sort of, they hold that respect and that like kind of that player focused attitude, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Okay, so we have a few more questions here. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. But yeah, there were some things that I wanted to bring up with you. So let's just go with something like out of the blue here. Give me your hottest take about PoE1, PoE2. Do you have anything that like you're like, damn, I get flack for this in my own community? Like, what are some of the hot takes you got for the game?
Um, I don't think it's a hot take. Like, I just think Path of Exile 2 Endgame is kind of trash. Like, that's just my that's just my take.
Yeah.
Yeah, Path of Exile 2 Endgame is just not good. Like, but with that said, like I said earlier, I do see that they can actually make that out of this work. I think they can make it work. Whereas I think a lot of people just have no faith in it at all. At the end of the day, like they added that atlas for a reason, right? Like I know that it was pretty hastily put together, but they obviously think they can make it work. So let's see what the next patch brings, right? 0.5. Hopefully the end game rework is happening in that patch. I really hope it's happening in that patch. Like please, Please just get it in. That should be has to be the focus of that patch. Like,
yes,
if
100%.
the league mechanic is like half baked, right? If there's no new class, the end game has to be the focus of 0.5. Like they missed it on 0.4. It's got to be there in 0.5. It's like unmissable. Let's see what happens with that, right? Who knows? Maybe they actually do scrap the Atlas thing. I don't know. Who knows what they're cooking, right? They said that they didn't have it finished in time, so maybe it's just this huge thing. Personally, I don't think they will scrap the Atlas because I think that they believe in it, and I think that other people should let them get there, right, with their vision. Because ultimately, like I said, they added it for a reason. They think that it can work, and a lot of the time in the past, GGG have done things where like they've made changes to things that you thought couldn't get better, or you thought in your own mind that you didn't want them to change, right? A good example of that is in 3.13 for Path of Exile 1, they added Atlas trees to the game, right? Where you could specialize, and at the time the Atlas was split into 4 like a quadrant. You'd have like one area and then another area, and in those particular areas you would have you could farm like specific Atlas drops, like items like Vermilion rings and things like that. And each quadrant of the Atlas had its own passive tree, so you could specialize into a particular type of content on each quadrant. So like, yeah, that was a cool idea, and that was at the time it was like, holy shit, this is insane, right? And for a year, that's how the game was in the end game, and people loved it, right? People, there was problems with that, the way that Atlas worked in terms of getting there. You had to like defeat the conquerors, like Cirrus conquerors in each quadrant, but it was a little bit weird. But the actual end game, like doing content, was great. But then in 3.17, here comes another Atlas expansion, and the Atlas trees in each quadrant are gone. In fact, all of the quadrants are gone because now it's just one big Atlas and there's one big Atlas tree, and everyone was like mind blown, right? That's an example of something where like you didn't actually know you wanted any changes there, or you thought it couldn't get better, but they just come along and make it better. So give it time. Like I do believe that they can get there with it, right? With this current Atlas. And Mark kind of like hinted at that they're doing, like, when he was talking about the Atlas trees being like, he in his own words, he said they were trash, right?
Yes.
He said the Atlas tree is trash.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows. That guy knows, right?
Yeah.
But he also like alluded to they were working on something that was very like grand in terms of design. That was kind of, I don't know, I can't remember the exact words they used, but that's partly why it wasn't ready, because it's like I don't want to say it's so huge, but it's something that's like kind of quite drastically different, right? So yeah, let them cook. Is it like, okay, if the end game changes are not in 0.5, I'm not going to be happy, right? But let's just get like 0.5. Surely end game changes are going to be there.
Surely. It has to be. I mean,
Yeah.
Look, they're very aware that this is a very like contentious issue, a very important thing that they have to get right, especially with the fact that we know it was something that they kind of undercooked just to give us something to do, which I'm happy with. At the end of the day, I mean, I would have been cool, like, or okay, I guess, to just keep playing the campaign over and over again, like what we did in Diablo 2 days. But like, the fact that we had an end game even at 0.1 was like a pretty big W, especially as it was like a pivot for them, like, pretty late into the development of like Path of Exile 2. That being said, man, like I do think that the Infinite Atlas is fixable. Like I said this on the Path to Exile podcast with the the homies Dead Rabbit, Kaltarak, and Miso Xuru. Like there's 2 things that we need right now that would just like, I was really hoping for as sort of like a band-aid fix until we actually get a substantial rework, like as he mentioned, the grandeur Atlas tree and stuff like that. I don't know what that means. I don't want to get my expectations up too much, but the 2 things we need are quality of life and agency right now. We need agency over how we navigate. So we need to be able to choose which maps we're doing more easily, whether that is through some sort of rework to towers again for the 3rd time or 4th time or whatever. Orbs of Horizon are a thing. I love the idea in theory of exploring this like Atlas though. Like I like how if you go to the corrupted zone, there's a plus to like the monster level, so you're getting higher like base item levels. Or if you're going to the cleansed areas, you're getting more rarity. And I think that those two things are interesting. And I wish that like every biome had interesting things like that, so that like you could target. Oh, I need to go to the desert because the desert has an increased to unique item chance to drop, or I need these unique items that drop from these particular maps or bosses in these maps, or I need to go to the water biome because it drops more like raw currency or something. I don't know, something to incentivize players to explore. And I think that that would be complemented so much with um, map completion, like in PoE1, being the source of points for the new revised Atlas. I think that that would go so well with just like exploring. It would actually give you a reason to do these like unfavorable map locations. Like, oh, I need to go find Meyer so I can bang that out and get my point for that. And that will be exacerbated once Act 5 comes out and Act 6 comes out. There's going to be a ton of maps, a ton of unique maps, a ton of new bosses to kill. And I think that like with the exploration of the Atlas and actually giving you the points to progress your character, it could be actually pretty fun. It could be actually really fun with those few changes.
Yeah, that's how I see the Atlas as well. I feel like they can get there with it, right? It's not great right now, but I think that it has potential.
Yeah. Are there
They just need to make that exploration like really fun. Like that's kind of the whole idea of that, right? Is the exploration part needs to be fun.
Yeah, did you have any sort of like additions or things that you think would make the end game like more substantial and in your eyes not or just more enjoyable in general?
So I think one thing is definitely like map size is a bit of an issue, and I think that might be something that's a really big problem this patch. I haven't heard many people talk about this, but there's 40% less monsters, right?
Yeah.
But the map sizes are still the same size. Is it going to feel like? I mean, obviously the 40% less is only for like endgame maps, right? It's like because how it was working is it was like monsters were increasing in pack size up until like from like tier 1 to tier 15, 16. So now like in the endgame maps you have less monsters or like comparatively the same as like tier 1 maps. Is it going to feel like those maps are a bit empty? Like is there just going to have these like big areas? Because you got to kind of keep in mind that they designed the map size, then the monsters were there, and now the monsters there's like lower amount of monsters, but the map size is the same. So it's like I do kind of feel like that might feel a bit strange. But just without that point in mind, map size in general has to be a thing that needs to change. I think the maps are just, there was a video. Troy made a video where he had a bunch of creators on. You were on there. I was on there, right? Talking about like what we want to see in 0.4. And one of the things on there was Paustron was talking about the rare map icons. And I hadn't really thought about it from what he was saying there. He was talking about how in PoE1 we had the rare map icons. We did. Back in 3.23 in Affliction League, you could get an extra ascendancy. And that ascendancy had a point that allowed you to see rare map icons, right? And he made the point of how like in the next league, when that went away, people weren't mad about it, right? But in PoE2, they were mad about it when they went away. And one of the things that he mentioned there about that, in terms of why people were annoyed, that I hadn't thought of, is that the rare map icons, in a way, were kind of telling you the map layout, right? This is something that I hadn't thought about, but it was kind of happening without you knowing about it, right? You would see the mini map, and you would know where the rare monsters are in unexplored areas of the map, and therefore you would know kind of the map layout. Not entirely, but you would know where to go and how kind of best to traverse the map. That issue is only an issue because of the map layouts, right? This is basically a non-issue in PoE1. Map layouts are just a non-issue. There are bad map layouts and there are good map layouts, but the way PoE1 works is you only have to run the bad map layouts once, right? And then you can kind of run the map layouts that you want to. The idea that the map layouts are not just kind of bad in terms of how you move around and like things that you get stuck on, like different things like shield charging into things or leap slamming and getting stuck in terrain, things like that. Not just bad in terms of that, but also how big they are relative to like how many monster packs are in each region of the map and things like that, or like where the boss is located. This is something that needs to be addressed, I think. They added checkpoints, as a band-aid. Then they added more checkpoints, right? Like surely this is not the end game of PoE 2 in terms of like, do they really want like checkpoints in maps? I mean, I know from my own personal perspective, I don't want checkpoints. Like, I'm not a big fan of checkpoints, right? I mean, even in this patch, they're doing the thing where if you reach every checkpoint on the map, you then reveal all of the content that you missed in the map, right? Which is kind of cool. Okay, that's kind of cool. But I don't want maps where I need to have checkpoints in them. Like the very fact that there is checkpoints in the map would suggest that the map layout isn't good or is too big. It's literally just there by by them existing. That's already an issue, right? So yeah, that is something that I think really does need to be solved is map layouts.
Yeah, no, I remember when they actually introduced like the checkpoints because correct me if I'm wrong, but in like 0.1 there wasn't any in maps if I'm
Yeah,
remembering correctly or not. And so
yeah,
it
there was
it,
no.
it felt like it was a band-aid fix for the backtracking issue, which was an issue caused by the fact that we had no idea where the rear monsters were, and then you had to basically search the entire map, and there was a guy tucked in a little corner somewhere. Um,
Yeah,
and now it kind of feels like we're meeting in the middle here, where we have checkpoints because we inevitably will have to do backtracking to find the content that we want to do. But if we discover these checkpoints, at least we'll know where we need to backtrack, basically, to do the backtracking. My biggest issue was so I played Falling Thunder in PoE 2 as my main character for 0.3, like power charge stacking invoker. And what I came to realize, and that kind of adds on to your point about the maps and the layouts and stuff like that, is that like I got griefed by terrain so fucking hard, bro, because the projectiles would bounce off of like little rocks and little trees and little wheelbarrows and stuff like that because they weren't true projectiles like lightning arrow or something like that where they would fly over that stuff. So like every
yeah,
time I would drop the falling thunder, it would like, just get eaten up by
get stuck. Yeah, exactly.
an abyssal depths would do the same thing. And I
Yeah,
just think personally there's just too much junk everywhere in these maps. Like it would be cool
yeah,
if they just reduced the amount of stuff like that's especially when like stuff is happening and there's explosions everywhere, there's monsters everywhere, there's particle effects everywhere. You can't really see the terrain that's like reefing you a little bit, and it can get you killed or it can mess up what your ability that you're using. And so that was one of my biggest issues with the maps right now, is that it just feels like they have so much junk in them. Like I don't know if that's kind of what you were getting at as well.
yeah. And also they added sprint, right, which kind of amplifies that issue even more because even on builds that don't have those like movement skills, right, and getting stuck on things like shield charge, sleep slam, whatever, you immediately start noticing those things because like your shield charge just runs into this like tiny pebble on the ground that you can't see, and you get like mini stunned, right, because you get like you kind of have to stop your sprint, move out of the way, start sprinting again. So yeah, that is another thing. Yeah, definitely those like, I don't know what that. Why is that a thing? Why is there so many like little rocks and stuff in these maps that you get stuck on? Very very weird. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know, but it almost seems like they have like a like when they're randomly generating maps, there's like a percentage amount of like
Yeah,
clutter or like I don't know if clutter is the right word, but it feels very cluttered to me. It's like
yeah,
just like these little patches of like water and stuff like that, and it just feels so unnecessary. It doesn't add
yeah,
anything to the like immersion of being in that map. It actually like kind of, yeah, it just feels odd. So hopefully they can get that solved as well. I definitely think that that's a big issue.
yeah,
Um, Okay, so we got your sort of like biggest changes that you'd want to see. Obviously, the end game is something that's very important to you, as it is to me as well. I wanted to kind of segue into some closing questions right now. So I've noticed that you don't like stream at all, and I just wondered, like, what is the rationale behind that? Usually, in this day and age, there's very much of an emphasis on like content creation as a streaming and YouTube creation thing. I know there's a lot of people who don't stream. I just wanted to ask you yourself personally, have you ever thought about it and why you've kind of chosen not to at this point?
I have thought about it. I probably will stream at some point. It's just a case of like when I have like the right, situation with like being able to stream at a certain time or whatever, and like being able to manage making videos at the same time. Because I do kind of enjoy making videos, and I also enjoy that aspect of like, I'm not streaming. I can just like chill out and whatever. It's kind of more relaxed in a way. Yeah, streaming. I don't really have anything against streaming. Like, it's not like it's something that I'll say like 100% I won't do. I'm not streaming at the moment, but yeah, maybe in the future.
That's cool. Yeah, I just wanted to ask because, I think that a lot of people, you know, do I think too much streaming, I think, where like, especially if you're trying to grow on Twitch like myself, like um it's easier to stream, right? You're playing the game.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it very much doesn't feel like work, especially to, some people. And so I think like, for me personally, I've decided to try and do like a cutback on streaming, even though I really enjoy it, just to be able to focus more on YouTube because I really enjoy like making videos too. Like it's so fun. And that's the type of stuff that can just exist and get you, grow your community, attract viewers to the stream and stuff like that. So, but I think your stream would be awesome. I think that you'd be like a super obviously knowledgeable and like fun streamer to watch. So, I'd be in there, man. If you ever pop up to Twitch or pop up to YouTube, I'll be in there, buddy.
yeah. It might happen. It could happen.
That's awesome. Another final closing question, and this is a hard question to ask, man, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm going to put you on the spot. I wanted to ask you, what do video games mean to you, and how have they impacted your life?
What do they mean to me? I think that the main thing is like it's like escapism, right? That's basically what gaming is at the end of the day. Like you're able to just live in another reality, right? Like while you're playing the game. That's basically what gaming is. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it is. It's something it's like, how can I even describe this? Yeah, when I was like, I just think generally like when you're kind of able to immerse yourself in a game, like especially if you are really interested in it, right? I kind of get the same impression from like when I'm really into a book, right? Like I don't do much reading, but I have read books before and I've been really gripped by a book, right? You're like, there's just you can't put the book down. You just like next chapter, right? You just can't put it down. When gaming's like that, and it's kind of like that for me, like most League launches, right? Like there's something that is just so interesting about making a new character and having that progression period. For me, that's like everything in an ARPG. Like once the character is actually like, let's say I get to like level 100 and I have like my gear is fully fleshed out. I could probably get some really expensive upgrades, right? But I'm not really that bothered. I just don't play the character anymore. Like I'm done with it at that point. I know that for some people, like once they get there, that's when they're blasting, right? They're like, Khan is a good example of that. Khan gets to like a level 100 character in like 3 days. Then he's playing that same level 100 character for 3 weeks afterwards. For me, like the progression element is everything, and like when the game is like that and it's just so engaging, that's kind of what it means to me, right? It's like it's a way to like absorb yourself into something almost, right? You just take yourself out of the real world and you're just living in the game, right? For those moments.
I know exactly what you mean, man. And that's how you know you're playing a good game that you enjoy. When
Yep.
time melts away from you and when you're not playing the game, you're thinking like, what do I need to do next? Like, what am I working on? What are my
Yeah,
goals and stuff like
exactly.
that? Like
Exactly. Yep.
you enter this like flow state, right? And like the
Yeah.
things that allow you to do that in life are super special. Cause let's be real, like life is shit a lot of the time. And so like having things that, distract us from the bullshit and all the crap going on in life, like those things like need to be cherished. And I think like for me as well, like, video games have provided that through the good times and the dark times. It's allowed me to kind of enter this beautiful flow state and like get distracted, but also I feel like it's in like a positive way. Like we could be getting distracted and into a flow state and a whole lot of other way more bad things for ourselves. So,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and there's also a lot of cool like positive things like, the social aspect of video games I think is super cool too. Like we wouldn't ever be chatting right now together on this podcast if it wasn't for being, having Path of Exile as sort of the glue for that, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, so it's pretty special, man. And I love that answer, and yeah, I couldn't agree more for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so final question. I wanted to ask you if you had any advice for people looking to potentially start out in their content creation or YouTube journey. How would you guide the next generation of YouTubers or content creators?
I think I would say you kind of have to have like a not a niche, but something that you like are really interested in or are very good at, right? Like you don't necessarily like you don't have to be the best player in Path of Exile. Like I'm not the best player in Path of Exile, right? Um, I just know a lot about the game, and I think having that kind of edge in some particular aspect, like you could be that you're just speed like you could be like Angormus is a good example, right? That guy just speed runs warrior, like he's just insanely good at speed running warrior. Like that's just like the speed at which he does things is ridiculous to someone like me watching him, right? Like that is absurd. Um, kind of having some kind of edge on something. Like I said, it doesn't need to be skill. It could be knowledge. It could be something else. Could be that you're just really entertaining, right? Could be anything like that. And then you kind of put that into your work, right? For me, it was just a case of like I just my impression of it was like I know way too much about this game. Like I know way more than I should know about the game, right?
You've been in that
Okay.
flow state a few too many times, and now
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know a lot. Yeah.
I know way too much about this game. Like I'm just going to talk about it. That was basically my way I started making videos, right?
Mhm.
Um, other people make videos like Havoc, right? Havoc 616, really nice guy by the way. I met him in real life. He makes videos and it's just like speed running the campaign or whatever, right? Um, like you can learn so much from that because all of these little things he does, which to like a normal player or someone who doesn't really know about that stuff, they wouldn't even consider like how much time this is saving in every element, right? Or even like the simple decision making of like what skills he's using at what time in his playthrough and why he's doing that, right? So yeah, just be enthusiastic about something, right? To a point of like obsessing over it, basically. Like you're like you're the ranger expert. You just know all about how these skills work, right? You know about how projectile mechanics work or something, or you're a speedrunning expert, or you play hardcore, but you just constantly die in Acts 2 over and over again, and everybody laughs at it, right? There's just
I hope that's not me,
there's
guys. I hope that's
there's
not
got to
me.
be yeah, there's got to be something right
Yeah.
there, and then once you kind of think that that's you, just start making videos, right? No one learns how to make good videos overnight, and like my videos have so many ways that they could be improved upon, but yeah, just start making videos, and yeah, that's if you create content that's interesting to someone, then ultimately there are going to be more people like that someone, and then your content's going to grow.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I feel like even playing Path of Exile and making content around it is a niche in itself. But what you're saying is essentially find your niche within that niche. Like what makes you stand out as a Path of Exile or Path of Exile 2 creator? Like, you know, what do you, and I think it all comes down to like what do you love to do? I think that is,
Yeah,
something that
that's it.
you got to look at yourself and be like, what am I doing in this game? It kind of circles back to how there's so many different ways to play the game. How are you playing the game? How do you love playing the game? And that kind of maybe is like your guiding star. That's at least how it was for me, where it's like my first video ever was hardcore solo self-found campaign tips and tricks guide. Like that was like I
Yeah,
finally got through the campaign and got to maps and hardcore. I was like, I'm gonna make a YouTube video about what I learned about this journey.
like how
And
you did it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, and I just
But it's like
yeah.
I would not make a video about how to make like 20 divines an hour or
Yeah.
something. That would
Same.
you would never ever see that video on my channel ever. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just not interested in it.
Mhm.
And also, like, I don't really think about like strategies and stuff, so I'm also not going to give good advice on that, right? So that's like, just if you're enthusiastic and interested about something, you can definitely make content on that thing. Like, you just got to have that. You got to have that sort of knowing of what it is.
For sure. And it kind of almost makes it so that like you're making content that you would enjoy yourself, which is cool. Like you're watching,
Yes.
like you're making
Yes.
videos that you would want to watch, which is like,
Yeah.
I think that is also like a really big like guiding star for me. Like I love podcasts. I love listening to people yap about video games and nostalgia and stuff like that. So like that's what inspired me to a part of my inspiration for this. And
Yeah.
yeah, and same with like hardcore build guides and like stuff like that. Not a lot of people do that on YouTube. There's not too many people that are kind of like within that niche, and it's something that I searched for when I started playing hardcore, and was like, oh, like no one's doing this. Like barely anyone has like an HCSSF build guide that I can follow, and so like I enjoy that stuff, and I feel like the stuff that you talk about, it's like you can see the passion there about like you sharing the tech and the knowledge and stuff like that. And it kind of seems like that's the type. If I had to guess, like, oh, what does Dreamcore watch on YouTube? I feel like maybe you're searching up like stuff like that, interesting things, and yeah, knowledge based stuff, content wise that you would enjoy watching as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I started making videos. Is that I wanted to see more of that on YouTube, right? There was a few creators doing it for PoE1, like Wolfio made videos that are very similar to that, where he would like pick a random unique and just see like what is possible with this item, right? Especially in like a meta where it's always about like what's the best build, and like uniques just get completely skipped over because people would kind of look at them, and on the face of things they're not particularly great, right? That's partly why that was part of my inspiration for the Forgotten Unique series that I did about a year ago, where I basically just picked uniques that are like not used at all and just talked about them, right? Because like, why not? There's a whole bunch, like Path of Exile 1 and even Path of Exile 2, like over time this is happening as well. Obviously we're getting the unique buffs in this upcoming patch, but like there's going to be like this backlog of just things that nobody ever looks at, right? They just don't look at it for several leagues in a row, and nobody is interested in it at all. And it's kind of fun to just like pull one of those things up and be like, hey, like this has this mod, that's pretty cool, like it can do this, and there's this new ascendancy that came in, and now this is possible, right? And like that, yeah, that's the type of content that I wanted to see, and that's kind of what I ended up making.
I love that. That's super cool. All right, man. We have reached the end of the show. At this point in time, I would just like to ask you to shout yourself out. Where can we find you? And if you wanted to share anything that you are working on, give us the scoop on what that is.
Yeah, Dreamcore GG on YouTube. I'll be making videos up until the launch and beyond launch for Path of Exile 2. I don't know what they're going to be about. I kind of like spontaneously just make videos, especially when there's like patch notes and there's like new information coming in sometimes from GGG, right? Like patch note changes and whatever. So yeah, it'll be the same sort of content that you can expect on my channel if you already watch it. It's like tech stuff, talking about uniques and things like that, ascendancies.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you cook up. Guys, if you're not living under a rock, or if you are living under a rock and you haven't seen this guy's stuff, there's obviously going to be a link in the description to Dreamcore's content. Very high quality stuff. I'm a massive fan. Make sure to give him a watch. Check him out. Thank you so much for today, man. I really appreciate it. You're awesome. And I hope to have you back on maybe at some other time in the future to keep chatting, because this was a really good time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it. And we will catch you in the next one. Peace. All right, everybody. That wraps it up for this episode of the Passive Tree Podcast. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe for more PoE2 content. I have a bunch more episodes of the podcast lined up with some really great guests, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you're interested in supporting the podcast and the channel, consider supporting through Patreon. There's a link in the video description. A special shout out to Kevin F. for supporting this channel. I appreciate you. Thank you. And until next time, happy blasting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.